We are now in Module 5, and in this particular module we're going to talk a lot about what we call the page setup and print options. There are a lot of options that you're going to want to do with your page. For example, you might want a header and footer. Those actually appear in the margin areas of your workbook. You're also going to want to maybe make some comments, maybe go ahead and print this out and you want it to fit on the page and look nice, and that's all the stuff we're going to talk about in this particular module. This is section 1, and we're going to go ahead and get started with what we call headers and footers. You're going to see that headers appear in the top margin of your worksheet. Footers appear in the bottom margin of your worksheet. You can put things in your header or footer like dates, if you want to put file names, maybe your name, anything you want you can put in there. You can't tell right now if you have a header or footer set up because you can't see the margins. If you go down to the bottom where your views are, the middle view is called Page Layout. And if you click on Page Layout, then you can actually see what the entire page is going to look like when you actually print it. You can now see that there is a header set up here, and if you look at the bottom of the page, there's a footer set up here as well. And typically what Excel will do is it will actually pull the file name and put it in the center of the header, and it will pull the actual page number and put it in the center of the footer. You can change any of this that you want. You can go in and type whatever you want on the left section, the center section, or the right section. And the same thing down with your footer. Something to note, when you type something in a header or footer, it's going to be on every page. You'll notice this is page 1 and it's got the name of the file there, and if I scroll down I'll see page 1 in the footer. And if I look at page 2, it's got the exact same header and it'll have the same footer except the page number will change, and that's because there's a little coding that you can set up to have it do that. If you had a 3rd, 4th, or 5th page and you add those, then you would have the same exact thing. Now, there's a different way to go in and look at these headers or footers, and I'm going to flip back to the normal view for a moment. That's the first view at the bottom. And one thing you'll notice is when you've been into that page layout view and you come out, you'll see a page break right here. That's just automatic. If you go up to your Insert tab and go all the way to the right, you're going to see right over here it says Header and Footer. Now when you click on it, at first it looks like you're back in the same view. But what I want you to notice is that you now have some options for your header and footer right here that you didn't have just clicking on the page layout view. Notice you're in a contextual tab, and that's a tab that appears only when you need it. And in this case it's header and footer tools. Notice if I click down on the page, I don't have that tab anymore. But if I click back in the header or footer, it'll pop back up. So don't think it's gone if you happen to be clicked in the middle of the page and it's gone. There are some things here I want to point out to you. First thing I want to point out is that you have some options up here to put in page numbers, the number of pages, the date, the time, file name. You can kind of see all those options right there. Let's put in a few things in our header. Let's go ahead and take out this center section. We'll just delete it totally. And then let's put over here the actual current date. You can type a date, which is fine, and that means it will always have that date. But if you use this one here where it says current date, that means that today it will have today's date, tomorrow the file will have that date, the next date will have that date. So it's a way of changing the date and always keeping it in sync with whatever day it happens to be. Now I put a little space in there, and I also want to put in the current time. And you can see it's just some encoding that tells it what to do here. Now I'm going to hit the tab key to go to the center, and I'll hit tab once more. I could just click over there if I wanted to. Let's say over here that what we want to do is go ahead and put in our name. Now let's go down and look and notice if the second page has that same information, and you can see that it does right here. Now let's talk about the footer a little bit. I'll click down here where it says page 1. I can certainly leave that there, but let me go back up and pull up the header and footer tools again. And I want you to notice that I can go ahead and say page 1, and if I want to I can put a space and say of, and then have it put in the number of pages. And that way it'll say page 1 of 1 or page 1 of 2, however many pages there happens to be. I'm going to go ahead and click over here and look at it, and now you'll see it says page 1 of 2, and page 2 says page 2 of 2. All right, let me go ahead and click back in the header or footer again and pull up my header and footer tools. Let's go all the way back to the left where it says header right here. These are just some pre-designed headers that I could pick from if I really didn't want to customize this myself. Let's say, for example, that I wanted to put over here the name of the file and also the page number. So you can see what it did right there is the file name and the page number. It overwrote what I manually typed in. Now the other thing you can do is in the footer section you can do the same thing. You can have something like prepared by, the date, and the page number. Now if you notice now it's got prepared by, and then it's got the date, and it's also got the page number here. And that's going to be the same on page 2. Remember, if you type it, then it's going to be on every page like that. If you actually go in and use some of the coding for page numbers and time and so forth, then it will update those page numbers and the time. Notice I can also put a picture in here if I wanted to. And I can also navigate a little bit. If I don't want to click on the footer, I can say go to footer and it will actually take me to the footer of the page. Now one thing that you're going to find when you go to print multiple pages, some people think that it's not professional for page 1 to say page 1 on the bottom. So you can actually take that off. You'll see right here it says different first page. And all that does is when you check the box, page 1 is not going to have a header or footer, but all the other pages will. See how page 2 has the header and the footer? Let me go back. The other thing is you can have different odd and even. If you want all the odd pages to say the same thing and all the even pages to say the same thing, you can set that up as well. And you can also align your page margins with the actual margins of the page if you wanted to do that. So there's a lot of different things you can do with headers and footers here. If you want to get out of it, you just go ahead and click inside your spreadsheet somewhere and then go back to the bottom to the first button, which is normal. And then that's how you work with your headers and footers. Let's go ahead now and go over into section 2 and we'll talk about print titles and how those work.